I love it when a camera manufacturer makes a new product in a line and it completely blows away the previous model. Well, that's what Panasonic did with the GH Micro Four Thirds mirrorless line. The new GH4 has lots of updates, brand new 4K resolution, new bitrate, and powerful new features that make it worth the purchase. And it's affordably priced compared to others in the market competing for 4K shooters. Hi guys, I'm Mia. The Panasonic GH3 grabbed the attention of many independent filmmakers and video journalists with its video features. Now, Panasonic has added some incredible upgrades to the new GH4, including True Cinema 4K capture and Ultra HD. So let's start there. In addition to the standard NTSC and PAL system frequencies, there's a new 24 Hz cinema frequency. Only there can you capture DCI standard 4K video with a resolution of 4096 by 2160 at 24 frames per second. The bitrate offered at this setting is 100 megabits per second. Now that bitrate is efficient enough to produce data-rich images without chewing up too much media and drive space with enormous files. It makes shooting 4K practical, especially for those just venturing into working with this resolution. The images captured at 4K are just stunning coming out of this camera, but unless you're shooting specifically for film requirements, you don't really need the true 4K resolution. If you switch the GH4 out of the 24 Hz cinema mode and into NTSC or PAL, you'll find a number of shooting formats to choose from, including MOV, MP4, MP4 with LPCM audio, and AVC HD. In each of those formats, you'll find a variety of resolutions, frame rates, and bit rates, so you can pick the best combination for your shooting needs. This mode is where you'll also find the 4K Ultra HD resolution offered at 30 and 24 frames per second. Ultra HD is a more consumer-friendly resolution of 3840 by 2160, and the GH4 captures it at 100 megabits per second. In my opinion, this resolution is a better choice to work with than your standard HD 1920 by 1080 resolution, and here's why. When you zoom in, the level of detail is outstanding at 4K, and noise appears significantly reduced in 4K. The footage just looks cleaner. Even if you only plan to show your footage on a 1080 screen, I would suggest you try shooting in 4K, then downsampling. I think you'll like the image quality better, and you'll have some room to crop the shot a few different ways or add some movement to a static shot in post. A quick observation here, Panasonic must have built some genius heat dispersion into the design of this camera because these resolutions and codecs chew up some serious power. I never had a problem with the camera overheating or even feeling like it was getting too hot, even while shooting continuous 4K video. At 1080p, the GH4 offers 24, 25, 30 and 60 frames per second capture at a variety of bit rates, ranging from 50 megabits per second to 200 megabits per second all-intra. If you choose to shoot at 24, 25, or 30 frames per second at 100 megabits per second, you'll notice an option to set a variable frame rate come into the shooting menu. This will allow you to over or under crank the footage in camera. You can shoot in select increments from 2 to 96 frames per second, allowing you to capture a fast or slow motion effect when you're shooting a scene, instead of applying it in post-production. This is such a cool feature to have on a camera at this level. This camera is capable of professional video capture and output. All internal video is captured at 422 8-bit color sampling. Now for many, that image will look outstanding, but it can be a bit of a downer for professionals who are used to working with 10-bit capture. So here's a bit of good news. The micro HDMI port has the option to output at 422 10-bit even up to 4K. So while you can't record 10-bit internally, you can externally. However, if you want to capture 4K externally at 10-bit, you'll need a recorder capable of handling that, and right now there's at least one in the testing phase. So not only do you have all the resolutions, codecs, and bit rates needed for professional video capture, but there's also a number of other features that make the GH4 truly a hybrid still and video camera. For one, it has a nice, bright OLED viewfinder that works when you're shooting video. This means, if you want, you can lose the LCD hood or loop required to see the highly reflective screens when working outside. You can just check the viewfinder for your critical focus. One less piece of gear needed. Combine that with the focus peaking option in the custom menu, and finding focus is a breeze compared to other cameras ergonomically designed to capture still images. The LCD on this camera is a touchscreen, and Panasonic has made several features available through touch while you're recording. You can adjust the aperture, shutter speed, exposure compensation, ISO, and microphone level, all without touching the lens or depressing any buttons on the camera. And it's easy to focus by just touching the autofocus square outline on the screen. You can drag it and drop it over any part of the image that you want to be in focus. That cuts out any shake that might be introduced from turning a lens ring or putting force on the camera. And if you're working with a lens that has a compatible power zoom, like any of Panasonic's Micro Four Thirds zoom lenses, you can actually zoom in and out silently with just a touch while you're recording. There are several different image profiles available in the motion picture menu. If you don't mind the camera adding a little mood to your footage, try shooting the Cinema 4K resolution in one of the Cinelight Gammas. I enjoyed Cinelight D because it seems to have a more neutral color palette, great for color grading in post, and its noise pattern has a film grain look to it. The other setting I really liked was the natural look for shooting more everyday moments. You can flip through the selections live on the LCD screen to see what each one looks like immediately. And if you want to make some fine-tune adjustments in any of the profiles, you have access to contrast, sharpness, noise reduction, saturation, and hue right there on screen. Again, all of the adjustments are made live on the LCD, so you can massage the image to the exact custom look that you want inside each picture profile. Now, to me, this is an easy and efficient way to get the image closer to the final look and feel that I want in camera. One thing you will want to keep in mind when working with this camera is the crop factor. With most Micro Four Thirds sensors, you'll already be looking at a 2x crop compared to a full-frame camera. With the GH4, you'll experience approximately a 2.3x crop factor when recording in 4K due to the 1:1 pixel readout of the sensor at this resolution. So when choosing your lenses, keep in mind that in order to achieve a wide angle of view, you'll need something that you might normally consider an ultra-wide lens, like a 7-14mm. When I paired the GH4 with this Olympus 12-40mm f2.8, I felt that at its widest, even in 4K, I was getting a big chunk of my scene, but certainly not the wide view you'd expect at 12mm. One of the downfalls of working with a smaller sensor size is you will lose some of your shallow depth of field and low light shooting capabilities compared to a full-frame sensor. You can counteract some of that loss by adding a Metabone speed booster to your kit. A speed booster allows you to pair lenses designed for larger sensors like full-frame or APS-C on the GH4, shrinking down the image circle from the lenses to better fit onto the smaller sensor. This lets you capture more of the lens's native angle of view while increasing the brightness of the image about one stop. If you're not using a Metabone speed booster, be prepared to see some noise when you're shooting at ISO 800 and up. As I mentioned earlier, the noise is less noticeable when you shoot in 4K, so give it a try. I was not too impressed with the low light performance of the GH4, but it was definitely not a deal breaker for me with this camera. You'll find simple, useful settings like a histogram and zebras available in the custom menu. Exposure can be difficult to nail based on the LCD alone, and I found that I was overexposing a little more than I wanted until I turned on the histogram. Then I had no problems. Master pedestal and luminance settings are in the motion picture menu, and what I'm getting at is that the GH4 allows you complete freedom to customize your image in camera and the experience of how you use the camera. 5 custom function buttons allow you to program your favorite settings to be available at your fingertips. One thing missing in my opinion, a built-in ND filter. You will definitely need one when working outdoors with this camera, and the rolling shutter is an issue for action panning. Although Panasonic has a suppression system in place to help with the rolling shutter, it's still noticeable. Did I mention the GH4 takes really nice still images too? Even while you're recording video? Even while you're recording 4K video? The GH4 has a 16 megapixel digital live MOS sensor and it shoots RAW. If you choose to snap a few frames while recording video, that resolution drops to 8.8 megapixels, which is still completely usable and offers plenty of resolution for most applications. The GH4 has a brand new autofocus system with 49 focus points. I felt like the autofocus was really fast for a predominantly still camera, and although I shot mostly in manual, focus was never an issue for me. Finally, I want to point out a feature that I really enjoyed working with: the Panasonic Image app and Wi-Fi on the GH4. My phone and camera were easy to link by just scanning the QR code on the camera's LCD with the Panasonic Image app. Once in the app, you can control everything, and the controls are intuitive to use. Things like f-stop, shutter speed, and white balance can all be controlled without even going into a menu. Plus, I didn't experience any noticeable delay in the live screen. That's pretty impressive. It's a great way to control the camera without physically touching it. The last thing I want to point out is that all of these features and functions are wrapped in a weather-resistant body that feels solid. I used the camera through a Florida summer downpour with only a tree for protection and had zero problems with performance or function. Let's move on to a much talked about accessory that can change the way professional videographers use the GH4, the YAGH Interface Unit. Now, this is not an accessory for everyone, but if you're looking to shoot live productions or working with high-end professional cinematography equipment, this interface unit can be a huge asset. That said, it's not very practical for everyday shooting. Let me explain. The first thing I'll point out is the two XLR inputs. Having professional audio attached to the camera saves you from using an external audio recorder. The interface unit records 2 channels of audio. On the back, you'll find controls for each channel, including line, mic, and 48-volt phantom power options. You can also select between mono or stereo recording, plus 2 monitoring levels for both channels. Next, let's take a look at the BNC connections. You have a timecode input and 4 SDI outputs. This interface is capable of outputting 10-bit 422 4K video through a quad link using these connections. You can then feed directly to a 4K switcher or a 4K external recorder when one becomes available. These connections can also send dual-link 1080p video up to 60 frames per second or 4 separate streams of video at 1080p up to 30 frames per second. There are a lot of different output options here for 10-bit 422 external recording. Just be aware that you can't record internally to an SD card when using any of the 10-bit options for output on the interface unit or on the GH4 itself. There's also an HDMI output on the other side of the unit. Here's my biggest gripe about this unit and why it doesn't feel very practical: the power option. A 4-pin XLR 12-volt DC input is the only power input, so you'll need a multi-pin cable and something like a Switchtronics PowerBase 70 or an Anton Bauer plate with a battery and charger. It's clunky, and it seems like there could have been an easier power option here. The interface unit is designed for high-end professional workflows, and it comes with a professional price tag, several $100s more than the actual camera itself. Overall, I really enjoyed working with the GH4, and the battery life is great on this camera. When you're a video professional, capturing video on a camera designed for still images, like a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, can sometimes be frustrating and challenging. This camera is truly a hybrid, making the video experience much more enjoyable for the camera operator. And the horsepower on the GH4 in terms of resolution and capture bitrate is just insane for such a small package. I loved the images coming out of the camera, especially at 4K. Everything looks sharp and details are gorgeous. I'm Mia McCormick. Thanks for watching.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.
Scott Kelby here, and welcome to this quick tour of our online training. We have hundreds of online classes for you, covering everything from lighting to landscape photography, From portrait photography to sports, we have classes on wedding, automotive photography, shooting, food, fashion, travel, you name it. The most incredible part of this is the price. You get all of this for just $199 a year, or you can pay monthly for just $24.95. 24-hour a day, 7-day a week access from anywhere in the world. I invite you to join with us today and start learning right now.